My friends, the great experiment.
Discovery. Hidden. Trick.
Would you look at that?
The greatest trick.
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
The greatest trick.
Welcome to Greatest Trek. It's a new Star Trek podcast from the makers of The Greatest Generation. I'm Ben Harrison.
I'm Adam Pranica.
How you doing, Adam?
Having a great day.
Yeah?
How are you doing today? Is how we're told to ask your friends and people close to you.
Yeah, because you don't want to get anything more detailed than that.
Yeah. Let's set up some boundaries for the question. I think that's important for all questions.
Yeah.
Among friends. That's a real, don't give me all the details. Just tell me about today. That's all I got time for.
I think boundaries are important, but also too many boundaries, maybe not such a good thing.
Oh?
New theory I'm toying with, that maybe sometimes these serve more to just keep everybody at arm's length, and we can't ever be vulnerable with anyone if everything is just a boundary.
Yeah. Well, this ongoing project known as Benjamin R. Harrison continues. And I hope to get constant updates as the series and the seasons go on.
How do you feel?
The question is irrelevant.
Hey, speaking of boundaries, stop licking your dick, Darwin. Darwin here in the studio with me.
That's how you get kicked off of YouTube. Bunch of dick licking.
Yeah. Totally tubining the proceedings here.
Darwin back there licking the old meat whistle. Did you notice the episode title on today's episode, Ben?
I did, and so did Darwin.
Darwin can read?
He's a past master of whistle speak.
Yeah, sure is.
Do you want to jump right into today's episode?
I want to jump in holding onto my legs, cannonball style. Let's get into it, Ben. It's Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 6, Whistle Speak.
You know the greatest danger facing us is an irrational fear of the unknown.
It's the uncertainty.
I thought that the scan sequence on this vial looked so cool.
I loved the react to the scan sequence. For some reason, it's blurping out all these colors at all of the faces in the room. Let's talk a little bit about the vial itself, because at the end of the last episode, we put our next little piece, our clue piece, into the can koozie puzzle that is slowly being assembled as the episodes go on. Was this vial inside that thing? Because they don't make a big deal out of where it came from.
There was the MacGuffin counter MacGuffin, right? We had Locke holding up the thing and going we got your piece. Mm-hmm. And we had Michael Burnham holding up the locket. And there was a little, Laurel and Hardy situation where it's locket is the MacGuffin. No, Locke has the MacGuffin. Does Locke have the MacGuffin, or is Locket the MacGuffin?
Exactly, yeah.
But I think it was the vial was mounted to the outside of the kind of browny, blacky, artifacty thing.
Right. Yeah. They are deeply frustrated by what is inside this vial because, by all accounts, it is just plain old distilled water.
Better plain old distilled water than no water?
This place is a dump.
Distilled water being the kind you don't drink. It's the kind you mix with your windshield washer fluid.
Right.
For best results. You know the kind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to have the minerals and the salt that water has to make it taste good.
Right.
It tastes like shit.
The consensus about this clue is that it sucks. I fucking hate this clue.
This clue's been stalling us for 2 days.
Besides the colors that are glowing off of everyone's face during the scan, everything about this sucks.
So there's this moment where Michael Burnham kind of flinches, right? And then she reaches down and pulls up the Infinity Room summons. Mm-hmm. did that get like beamed into her butt or something? Like, well, she like reaches behind her and suddenly she has it. Like, where did it come from?
The women's wear of the future has pockets, Ben.
What?
I know. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it.
The scientists had claimed it was impossible for so long that I had just come to terms with it.
It only took 800 years.
Next, you're going to be telling me that in the 32nd century, you can find something in your purse when you're looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't get an image of that. Instead, this room is illuminated once again after the scanners indicate nothing. But Burnham is immediately blurped into the white room of Dr. Kovich's, and he seems to make it clear that he's been listening in on how things are going. He has a knowledge of the situation that makes it clear when he says, boy, you guys are really not getting it when it comes to the water thing, huh?
Right.
And if you think you're going to get back on Maul and Locke duty, that's not happening either. The water, this is your mission.
The water's the mission.
The action is the juice.
Maul and Locke duty has gone to another starship who is chasing their war pod, something.
Is it warp pod and not war pod?
I don't know, man.
Is that like a new Star Trek podcast?
If you thought between the last time we recorded and now I went back and checked what kind of pod that was, I did not.
Nope. What did we do with that week?
Nothing.
Not research.
Frittered it away. So she does have to deliver the bad news. Like, yeah, so the clue appears to be water, and we're a little bit stuck in the mud trying to figure that. Maybe we're supposed to make mud. Let me get back to the team.
A big dramatic flourish is made about Dr. Kovich using a legal pad and a standard writing implement to write the names of all the scientists involved in this great big mission.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about the paper and how much he enjoys it and how it's not replicated.
Where did you even find that?
I can be resourceful.
But he says nothing about his preference in writing instruments, Ben. And I wanted to know way more about what pen he felt was superior.
Oh, man.
I definitely have a pen opinion. Do you?
Are you a member of the fancy pen community?
My favorite pen isn't fancy. It's the fucking gel roller. It's the Jetstream.
Oh.
This is the pen. And they come in like packs of 20 or whatever. It's not expensive. It's the Uniball Jetstream. And oh my God, it writes like a dream. I love it.
I'm going to show you my favorite pen. Let me introduce you to the Pilot Razor Point, a archival quality ink on a very fine felt tip.
Fine up that tip.
Yeah.
Fine it up.
Also, something I buy, from a regular old office supply outlet in boxes, and I love this pen.
Sometimes, many times, the best thing is not the most expensive thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it is the best thing that's most expensive.
But in the pen department, yeah.
Yeah.
I like both of these choices.
Yeah. Did we get a close-up on his pen? Were you able to get a look at it?
We did not.
Okay.
And I was very disappointed by this. Because this is how you get product placement.
Yeah. It seems that he is traveling back in time or
it's
reaching through a time portal into a Staples and stealing his office supplies.
Like I said, I'm resourceful.
That was easy.
This scene comes out of nowhere because he's behind what is very clearly like an IKEA standing and sit down desk drinking a Monster energy drink with a Staples brand generic pack of legal pads and a big box of rollerball pens.
Yeah, he crosses his legs and throws his feet up on the desk, and the Reebok logo on the soles of his shoes are kind of right prominently in the front of the frame.
He's really changed.
Yeah, we have this list, and he's been crossing out the scientists' names who created the clues that have already been found. So we've got a Denobulin and a Betazoid left, which means there's still a chance that we get to experience Gene Roddenberry's horny vision of the future on Betazoid.
When you look at this list of scientists, saving Betazoid scientists for last kind of seems like the treat, right?
Yeah. Do you think that Discovery is just gonna last 3 episodes will be an arc that is just like the hardest R in Star Trek history? Like, let's just if we're ending the series, let's show all the fucking bush and everything, you know?
Let's just be comfortably nude for the last 3 episodes.
They pull into the orbit around Betazoid space, and like Guardian Z, some representative blurps onto the bridge naked, and it's like,
it's nude beach rules on Betazoid.
Isn't it wonderful?
Elsewhere on the Discovery, Culber is having a conversation with his abuela.
Ay, abuela, tú tienes un don.
He wants a recipe for mofongo.
we are learning something in real time here, because we're like, how is he able to call his abuela?
Yeah.
Given where he came from. And then it's revealed this is Abuela GPT.
Zora, pause the program.
It's a fun moment between them because it is revealed that their prized mofongo recipe, long thought to be a traditional family recipe made by the abuela, a secret recipe even. What could those secrets be? The secret is that it's replicated.
Yeah.
She waits for everyone to get drunk or something. And then she throws out the homemade stuff, scrapes it into a trash bin, and replicates the better version. And that's what she's been serving to her family.
Do you think this is what everybody in Star Trek is doing? Like, they're so unredeemably bad at chopping up vegetables that, like, they make a show of cooking stuff, but nobody is actually serving the thing that they cooked.
It's the mofongo of lies. And that is a dark family secret. What Culber is doing here is what he calls grief alleviation. It's a hollow program to help him with an unspecified grief that he's enduring. And this is a hollow of his grandma. And he starts the program over, and this time he explains his Trill experience with her, and she cannot help him because she is an abuela who has no scientific experience whatsoever.
She says that this might be not a spiritual problem, but a problem of the body. Mm-hmm. So he's like, damn, like, I never even thought of that. Like, maybe there's something like physically that got changed in me by going through that ritual.
Let me ask you a question about the idea of grief alleviation hollow programs.
All right.
This made me really sad because grief seems to be a thing that is like a very human experience to endure. And I understand the loss of a family member can be traumatic and awful, but like, it must be endured, right? Like the idea that you could just hollow back up your dead dog or your dead abuela or your dead whoever and have conversations with them, does that not remove the idea altogether? Does it not remove an essential part of like being a human being? That being the experience of missing someone who's gone?
Yeah.
There's something that made me very sad about this moment.
I think that's well said. I mean, I've read bits and pieces about using like VR goggles on PTSD sufferers to like kind of like as exposure therapy, like re-experience a thing that is similar to the traumatic event in a way where like it's impossible to actually get physically harmed, but it tricks a lot of your sensorium into believing you're back there doing that thing or whatever.
Right.
I suppose there's an argument to be made that PTSD is also like a human experience that is real.
Sure. Yeah. A comic I really like talks about PTSD, but also refers to its mirror, which is post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
In that going through something traumatic can often result in the growth of a person by virtue of its experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know. When I think about Culber having a conversation with his abuela, I want it to be happy in a, isn't that neat? Like, I don't want him to need this the way that he does in a medical sense.
Yeah, well, and I also don't want him to like find out this horrible family secret from a fucking robot, you know?
Yeah.
El mofongo que tú y yo hacemos es incomible.
She's like, the reason no one liked the flavor of the mofongo is because your abuelo was shooting ropes into it.
Oh, Jesus.
Every time I turned my back, your horny abuelo was shooting on the food.
He got one look at those plátanos and he couldn't help himself. Many thought that your abuelo should not have dated a woman.
Pues sí, claro. Of course.
So he's going to go examine his birdie, which also seems pretty flawless, if you ask me.
Yeah. He's examining the part above the neck, though.
Yeah.
The flawed part.
Speaking of making it rain, back in engineering, the dorks have hit on the idea that maybe this vial of totally pure, unadulterated water is to do with the Denobulan scientist who made rain as like his main, he was like a weather control technician of some kind. I was really hoping we were going to get to see a Denobulan in this episode, but we do not.
No such luck.
Starting to get a little antsy. Antsy. Restless.
The Denobulan weather system doesn't make purified water, but one system that he installed might have, and it's on a planet called Halemno, and they have one functioning water tower left all these hundreds of years later.
When they get there, Halemno from orbit looks like a very dry place, save for, you know, like when you're on a commercial airplane and you look out the window over the plain states and you'll see like the circles of irrigation.
Right.
There's a circle of irrigation on this planet that denotes the weather tower.
What a cute idea to have a totally dry, fucked up planet and one little patch of green on it. And look, it's still kind of working a little bit. How nice for you.
Don't get too close. I might exterminate your entire species.
Hey, just a word to the wise when you beam down. Look out for traps that grab you by the ankle and pull you up in the air.
There's basically two sorts of traps in my mind. There's ankle grab trap and exterminate your entire species trap.
The two levels of trap.
I often confuse them. They're like thermometers.
Don't put that one under your tongue.
The red trap is for extermination. The blue one is for ankles.
Who are you people?
We learn a little bit about the Halemnites or whatever. They are humanoids. They are pre-warp, pre-industrial, and they pretty much all live in this circle.
Do they have multiple working weather towers on this planet? Hell no! It's just one.
Yeah. And they like the tower itself it like looks like it's a natural feature, but that's like I don't know, a hologram or a duck blind or something.
Why would he make a weather tower look like a mountain?
It's a good question.
You see like the cell towers near the freeways in LA look like this. Like they're camouflaged to look like trees that aren't indigenous to this area.
Right. Yeah, and there's like never any birds in them, and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that this is like non-ionizing radiation, but that's kind of disturbing.
On the bridge, Adira tells Burnham and Raynor their theory about how this thing got there. And it's an explanation that's more about how Adira works on the bridge now.
Adira got a little upgrade. We can't beam right into the tower, so we're going to beam down nearby and walk to it, I guess. And this is going to be a Burnham and Tilly mission. Book not coming this time. Raynor again getting left at the con. And we have a little catch up between Burnham and Tilly where Burnham has done a whole bunch of research about the culture and like what is known about the people of Halemno. The big reveal is that they have this thing called whistle speak.
Look, the whistling. It's a component of their language.
And I was like, oh, give me a planet of bird people. I want to see a bird person so fucking bad.
God, I know. A callback to the very best of what Lower Decks can do in terms of comedy. I was horrified at the prospect of going to a planet completely populated by that one annoying person in the office that just whistles to themselves all the time. And you get like the faintest whiff of that in this scene before the translator program turns it over, and then you're just hearing their voices translated into English.
Yeah. And they're like, so they have like this very interesting like flat society with no class stratification. They've got 3 gender identities. They all whistle. And even though they're pre-industrial, everyone has a microwave and some fish to heat up in it.
We must celebrate with our national dish.
Outside of every living situation on this planet, there is a "In this house we believe" sign. I mean, it is basically like the dream of discovery incarnate in this society. Absolutely amazing.
Everyone has a coexist bumper sticker on their butt.
Yeah.
Because they don't have cars.
Yeah. I mean, this mission's ready to begin. Tilly and Burnham blurp on down there. It's going to be one of those missions where they've got to wear a little bit of loaf. They got to blend in. This is a pre-warp society, Ben. If you've been listening to the show a long time, you might think that we're talking about babies, society of babies. Mm-hmm. No, it's just like the old definition of that.
Right.
Just pre-warp.
On their way to going to the mission, there's a little like, so how's your new show coming along, Tilly? Is that going to be happening soon?
Tilly's like, coming this fall to Paramount Plus is when you'll find out more.
How is it going over there, by the way?
Lousy!
They beam down before she can really answer that question, and they are in a forest at night, and they have retinal tricorders because I guess they can't have the tricorders that are built into the badges because no holograms allowed in a pre-warp society.
This kind of feels like it should be the thing in Star Trek in this time period anyway.
Yeah.
What are you doing carrying around your shit?
Yeah, and showing your secret captain code to your potentially untrustworthy first officer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they pick up the conversation about how the new show is going, and it sounds like there's already a bit of drama at Starfleet Academy because Cadet Ross is thinking of leaving to pursue her passion for touching people's drinks with her bare fingies. Could you believe this? A callback to the person that served them their drinks in that episode?
You can't call back a minor character that way. No one understands who you're talking about. There was nothing memorable about them.
A U5 is a performer on a show that has fewer than 5 lines. In this case, it was just an extra because they didn't say anything. The only reason they made an impression was that they touched people's beverages with their bare hands.
Do you know how many germs are on the tip of a human finger?
You're gonna kill somebody!
Shut it down!
The greatest trick
Is yet to come.
The whistle speak conversation starts to happen, and I thought for sure this was going to be some kind of a trap because it was like a come here, like the water's nice kind of thing, and it rhymed, like it was like a poem.
Yeah.
Like the call and the response rhymed with each other.
Didn't trust it.
That felt like, oh, that can't be good.
Yeah.
But they, for some reason, believe that this is, I mean, I guess it's being translated, so I don't know if it rhymed in whistle. It rhymed in English.
It could be one of those imperfect translations, though.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just close enough to be gettable.
Right, yeah. Or maybe there's like a glitch with the universal translator that it's like stuck in Dr. Seuss mode, so it makes everything sound a little bit like that.
The conversation sounds like, in context, a person welcoming a group of travelers that have come from far away. That's sort of what we're gathering here.
Back up on the ship, Book is bored out of his skull because he's not on the mission this week. and he wants Dr. Culber to get him in touch with the ship that is after Maul and Locke, because he thinks he has like information that will be interesting to their ship's counselor. Culber basically says to fuck off. You're not in this episode really that much.
You need to accept that there's nothing for you to do right now.
I'm in the B story. You aren't really.
Book's like, is there a way that, you know how things go on Discovery, W/R/T therapy? Is there a way that we can like force that onto someone else's crew remotely and make that happen here?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Book is having a hard time grappling with the truth that he will not be in the A story this episode and is recommended rest and distraction.
Yeah.
To get over that.
So Culber goes to Stamets in engineering and is like, hey, really excited to scan my brain because very few brain scans have been done after that Trill ritual I took part in, and this is just a great opportunity to do some fun science. And Stamets is like, you sure that's why you want to do that? You sure about that's why?
You sure about that? Something, it'll bring us closer together after a couple of episodes of things being weird between us.
Yeah. You seem to have not noticed that I'm going through a thing for long enough that I'm now going to force the issue.
I mean, Culber could just say, we need to talk about my neural scan results after they come in.
Yeah. But nobody likes being told we need to talk.
No.
And so he does his husband a favor there.
Good job by this show making a planet surface distinct. I thought this one was unusual for what we have gotten in new Star Trek. Very green, very dusty.
Yeah, like an interesting combination of the dust and the green. And
yeah.
we meet a very dusty lady down on the surface who is with the party of people that are walking over to where the creepy whistles are coming from.
We are nearly there.
She is like happy for them to join them. It sort of seems like kind of a religious pilgrimage to go to this tower. And she explains like, oh yeah, I was like tending some orchards and like clearing them of dust, but I wound up breathing a lot of the dust. So I'm in a bad way, as you can see from my outward appearance and how dusty I am.
She is coughing like a person about to die in a TV show or movie. Like, that is the take here. I don't feel like she's long for this episode. I think that's how you're supposed to feel about this character.
Yeah, they stop short of having her cough a little mist of blood into a white hanky.
Right.
Probably because it would be sort of implausible for a pre-industrial society to have an abundant supply of white hankies for people like this to be carrying around.
I've long carried hankies in my back pocket, but I don't like to carry white ones. I just feel like as soon as I do, that scene is going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Pattern hankies. Every time.
You'd be the first Star Trek podcaster to die of consumption.
Yeah. Just my luck.
This is not consumption. This is distribution. Well, that don't exactly make it legal.
There's a temple at the summit of this thing that they talk about.
Yeah.
The idea is that very, very few people get to go inside this thing. And Burnham makes her believe that she and Tilly are a part of this pilgrimage too. We're just from far away. We heard about this temple. We'd love to go to there. And so they're invited to join. And it's in this scene that we meet Rava, who is there to greet. And at this point, the old lady is really having a hard time with her breathing. And the healing grove is where they are taken.
Yeah, and Michael Burnham is like whacking her on the back, trying to help her breathe. And she and Tilly are talking about how fucked up it is that they can't just use some Federation medicine because this would be trivially easy to fix in their technological context. But a bunch of people come out and start working on this lady, and the treatment involves like Tibetan singing bowls and some really trippy visual effects that like shake the screen all willy-nilly and like knock Michael Burnham out. But you see the dust on the floor, like, you know, like it's on a speaker, like dancing.
And dust comes out of the old lady.
Yeah. It seems like the attending physician is Rava's father.
You know, you laugh at natural medicine until the dirt comes out of your mouth. Then we'll see what you believe in.
Yeah, really impressive. And everybody, like Tilly and Michael Burnham, like express how impressed they are. I kept wondering, like, if somebody was going to call them on being, like, you know, having, like, weirdly little context for anything that's going on. Like, you live on Dusty Forest Planet 2. What do you mean you don't know about the singing bowl treatment?
Yeah, their backstory is not scrutinized. This society is very welcoming.
Yeah, just nice people.
That's another part about these people that are just perfect.
Yeah. And a further part that is just perfect is we find out that there is a race that if you win it, you get to go to the temple. So they're like, perfect. We'll do the race and we'll get to go to the temple. Rava is just so eager to tell them key plot points that they might be curious about. Really gives away the game.
If you make the request, we could do it tomorrow morning. Isn't that right, Father? One just has to make the request. That's how it works.
Then I make the request.
But it's death cult rules. And death cult rules stipulate that your race is not a choke race. Your tower is not a death tower. You need to refer to these things in their most basic elements, right?
Right, yeah.
You can't give it away.
You can give away all of the information you would need to accidentally be bought into this race without realizing what the true stakes of the race are.
Exactly.
So, yeah, the next morning, like, Rava is all psyched because they've decided to take part in the race, but their father is pissed about this and doesn't like that they're wearing their deceased mom's bracelet. Michael Burnham and Tilly, like, walk away from the crowd for a moment and get radio comms from Disco with a little update. Turns out there are other towers on this planet that used to do what this one does and keep the dust storms at bay. And their energy matrices fell out of alignment, and that's what's happening to this one. That's why it's so dusty everywhere. But presumably they'll be able to find the control panel and, you know, put a paper clip into a little hole and reboot the system to factory settings, and everything should be fine. But it does raise the stakes, because if they don't find that control panel and, you know, do necessary routine maintenance on this tower, it too will fail, and all of the people that live on this planet will die of dust inhalation.
In another situation that involves something failing at the top of a great beef tower, and the consequences of not being able to fix it resulting in something awful. Culber and Stamets look at Culber's brain scans, and there's no sign of effects, like of negative effects from this Zantara experience that he had. And this makes Culber sad, because he wanted a tangible reason for how he's feeling. And absent a scientific reason for how he's feeling, once again, all that remains is a spiritual cause.
Yeah, and that sort of makes Stamets seem uncomfortable.
Well,
not so much that he's like, I don't want to like hang, but it's just not like a place that he's willing to go also.
Are you super clear on Culber's feelings about his feelings, such that they are definitely negative or just unusual? Because the thing about Culber is, like, I feel weird and I want to know why, and I can't find out why. And at no point is Culber like, I feel bad. It's just, right. I feel weird, and he wants to know why. And Stamets, like, his closest person, his person actually is like, well, absent any more information about the unusual way you're feeling, try to experience the joy that may be coming from it. And this doesn't seem like it's bad advice, given the information that Stamets has, right? But it seems like it's perceived as, Stamets doesn't understand me. and what I'm going through, and maybe we should break up or whatever. Like, it seems existential to their relationship in a way that I'm not sure is supported by what's happening here.
Yeah, like it almost felt like a kind of Venus and Mars thing. Like, of course you wouldn't understand, you don't, and which is interesting in a same-sex relationship, but their spirits are very different as characters, so I kind of see it.
Did they ever go through this in reverse? I remember them sort of going through this in reverse when Stamets had to stick things in his arms to fly the spore ship around.
Right.
Like, he did feel a kind of burden of that process in a way no one else would ever understand. Why isn't that ever brought up?
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. At the same time, like, I do think that Culber is just trying to know himself and know how to think about what he is going through. And it feels to me like he has lumped Stamets and science and physical problem all into one bucket, where he's like, I've checked all, like, this entire swath of potential avenues of exploration off. Like, my husband can't help me, science can't help me, brain scans can't help me. I have to go somewhere else for this.
We need to score a lot of Latin fast.
We're licensed businessmen.
This ship and her history will shortly become the care of another crew. They will continue the voyage as we have begun.
The greatest trick.
Back on the planet, the lady that was suffering from dust lung earlier.
Can we call her Wheezy, or is that bad?
Yes.
We probably can't call her Wheezy, right?
So Wheezy comes up to Michael Burnham and is like, hey, so you're running the race. Weird choice. I ran it back in the day. I don't think it's a good, to me, it's a bad race, and you should be able to connect with your gods without running this race. And Michael's like, yeah, but I got to get in that room. This is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
So everybody that's going to be competing in it assembles on the starting line, and twist number one, everyone gets a sugar cube handed out to them, and it makes you feel a perishing thirst, this sugar cube. And there's a bunch of bowls of water kind of assembled around. Like, it seems like every runner has a bowl of water right in front of them that they can grab if they immediately react badly to the sugar cube. And a couple of them do, and they've been eliminated from competition.
This is like the hour after eating a heavy meal at a steakhouse. This is the sort of thirst that takes hold and won't let go.
Yeah, it's like the kind of thirst where you might get 2 cans of lager beer, just in case one doesn't rid you of it entirely.
It's the continental way, isn't it?
Yeah, this comes as a surprise to Burnham and Tilly, who are last in the row of eating their past appetizers and see the consequences happen upstream. At that point, I don't know if I'm popping this thing.
Yeah, it doesn't look fun.
Yeah.
But with everybody that hasn't drunk still qualified to race, including Rava, they get the race started. And they talked about this race, and I was picturing them like it was like a rock scramble up this pillar to the top of the column or something. No, it's like a fun run in the forest. It's very chill. And the thing that is hard about it is the sugar cube, and that there are olive wood bowls of water on little posts every 30, 40 feet, tempting you the entire way.
The most frustrating part about the water in the wooden bowls is that you're made to have to drink it with the wooden salad claws that come in the set. And you just can't get much water off of those claws.
Yeah. The olive wood bowl budget for this episode was astronomical. We've been talking about why did they not get cameos from characters from past seasons when they did the time jumping episode? Why did they not get the TOS crew as recast for Strange New Worlds last episode when they were in the pocket dimension? It is all down to how much money they spent in this episode on olive wood bowls and salad tongs.
Sell the bowls. Recoup the expense.
He was stating the obvious again.
These things look great. They do look great on camera, right?
They're very attractive bowls.
When you get one shiny thing in a dust bowl of a set, like, they really pop.
They do. So they're running, and like occasionally people tap out and drink from the bowl, and Burnham and Tilly do not seem like they are in the lead by any means. Like, they are keeping pace with maybe the middle of the pack, but they are suffering. And at some point, Burnham spots some weird moss that is growing on some rocks that is a different color from other moss that they've seen around. And
you don't eat the yellow moss, Ben.
Right.
It's the first rule of this race.
The science is that this must be a reaction to radiation, and that therefore the denser areas of yellow moss must lead to the control panel. So she's going to go run that down. Tilly is going to continue in the race.
I'm the queen of endurance.
Kind of a throwback to early season Star Trek Discovery when Tilly and Burnham used to run around the ship for exercise, you know?
I liked that as a callback. I wish they'd gotten into their old disco shirts.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, but that's a Prime Directive break right there. Can't do it.
Yeah. People would have questions about their disco shirts that were answered pretty affirmatively by their "don't ask me about my disco shirts."
So Michael goes to chase the moss while Tilly continues to run. Michael drinks the water in order to officially leave the race. And that leaves Rava and Tilly being the last competitors in this thing.
Yeah, and like it looks like Tilly's going to pass out at one point, and Rava's like, "No, don't do it." And they run back and give Tilly the pep talk that she needed. And Burnham finds the control panel and uses her ocular tricorder to scan this rock. And I love the little like panel that comes away from the control panel, and we've got isolinear chips and technology.
Incredible! I love this thing. It looks great.
It's been hidden in the rock the whole time.
Yeah. It is Adira's job to direct Michael into how to fix this control panel, and with all these red chips, it's going to be pretty tedious, taking them out and plugging them into other places and so forth.
Right.
Tilly and Rava have reached the end of the race, and this last leg, it's so torturous. That last 20 meters or so, they're going to have to carry one of these wooden bowls of water with them as such a tease. And you get a bunch of ECUs on some loafed up lips, like the lip budget. The detail on these lips really sells the torture of this moment.
Like that sugar cube chaps your fucking body up when you eat it. So you can really tell they're suffering, and not the end of the suffering for these two characters, but it seems really bad at the time. And they're both really close to the finish line, and Rava falls over and spills, and you know, there's the whole thing about how Rava's dad is a great man and they want to live up to that level of greatness and show him how great they can be. So this is, you know, like the most crushing moment. You can't cross the finish line with an empty bowl. That's just not how it's done. So Tilly holds Rava down, goes back and pours out half of her bowl into Rava's bowl, and they cross together.
You can't fill from an empty bowl, Ben. You hear it all the time. Highly unorthodox finish to this race, but he'll allow it.
There's nothing in the rules that says a golden retriever can't play basketball, and there's nothing in the rules that says you can't pour half your bowl out to help one of your competitors cross the finish line also.
Meanwhile, the whole chip swap mission happening with Burnham has continued, and Adira has become so flustered and has lost so much confidence in themselves. Adira just wants to tag themselves out of this mission, get replaced by someone else. And Raynor's like, no.
Stop feeling bad about yourself and support the fucking captain, Adira.
Yeah. And so Adira does. Burnham yanks the final chip out and the whole system resets, and it works. And there is something about this effect. There's something about what it was and what it becomes. It is so beautiful. These glowing lights in this dusty, mossy scene. Like, I couldn't help but feel great joy at watching this thing activate.
A feeling of great joy.
It was a great payoff.
Yeah, it's a simple trick. There's a couple moments in this episode where I was like, they did something that is actually like pretty simple. Like they're not like fancy computer effects or anything going on here, but it just works so well. It's just well executed.
Yeah. So Tilly is in the temple and Rava is with their dad and everyone's lighting torches. And he is using some terminology that Tilly has not heard before, having to do with the temple or the race or anything else about what happens here. The word sacrifice is thrown around kind of loosely.
Turns out being in the temple is bad.
They are there to satisfy the rain gods with their deaths. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So it's Rava and Tilly in this room as it starts to seal itself up. And another like simple effect, but I thought was really nicely done, was when the roof is covering over top of this room that's going to be evacuated of air, just the shadow creeping across the floor.
That was great.
The greatest trick.
Tilly is feeling shitty that she turned back to help Rava, and Rava's like, no, this is great because it shows that I'm like living up to the high standard set by my father. And Michael Burnham is disgusted with this whole situation and just decides to take the Prime Directive and fire it into the sun at this point.
I love this. There's a brief argument between Rayner and Burnham where Burnham wants to be beamed directly to where Rava's dad is. And Rayner's like, well, that's not going to work with the Prime Directive. And she's like, fuck that.
We have to do this.
I'm a Starfleet captain and I'm far from HQ. Let's break it.
Yeah.
And so she gets blurped right in there.
Yeah. So Michael Burnham is talking to Ovaz and trying to convince him to open the door. And he's like having his like, what the hell just happened? Where did you come from? Are you even really here? Are you one of the gods? Freak out. And inside this chamber, it starts to get like weird and sleepy. And I thought it was a nice choice that like they'd talked about like this room is going to like become a vacuum at some point and that will kill them. But like it didn't explain that they would run out of oxygen as quickly as they did. So I was like a little unsure why they were so sleepy and weird.
Weren't you also looking at the flames of the torches for a sign, like an actual tangible sign that the breathable air was leaving?
Yeah.
They're never extinguished, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a continuity error or if like fire needs less air than people do or something. I mean, it would have been a nice thought to like put them out just to like buy themselves some time, right?
Yeah.
But they need the light so that they can count because there's some runes on the wall that are the ancient whistle speak for the numbers 1 through 5. And they're in Tower 3, and these numbers represent the other towers. And Tilly notices something about these numbers. So the High Summit is like a religious icon to these people, and the sacrifice is because the other ones failed. So they like have to show the gods that they're worthy of this last one so that the gods don't take this last one away also.
Yeah, it's real Old Testament shit here. And even Rava is having some cold religious feet about their predicament.
Yeah.
Tilly tries to comfort them. I don't know. Like this is a real, like, this is kind of the inverse of there's no atheists in foxholes. It turns out there are atheists in ritualistic sacrifice holes. Especially toward the end.
Yeah. Yeah, because Tilly's heart is not in it when she's like, yeah, like, you know, you wanted to impress your father. Like, everybody gets that, you know?
I think Tilly's got to tell them the truth.
Yeah. You think that's bad? You should meet my mom.
You think that's bad?
Burnham is like trying to build rapport with Ovaz and get him out of his primitive religious reverie at her having appeared out of thin air. And she gets Tilly to extract some personal information out of Rava about Rava's mother. So Rava is singing this lullaby that their mom used to sing, and Michael is reproducing it in the other chamber for Ovaz to hear, and this convinces him that there is technology being used here. This is not God stuff. This is technology stuff. And Michael Burnham is like, I assure you, like, no matter what, rain is going to happen. Like, I did the thing already at the control panel downstairs. Nobody needs to get sacrificed for the rain to happen. So he's finally convinced, and he turns the lever that opens the door, and air rushes in, and Culber beams down with a med kit and starts treating Rava with super future medicine.
I love how Ovaz can't even look at the care being administered to Rava. Instead, he's watching a hollow projection of the planet they're on.
Just getting his mind absolutely shattered everywhere he turns, basically.
Yeah. Rava asks Burnham why the Denobulans built the sprinkler systems for them and why those sprinkler systems are so shitty.
Yeah. And Ovaz is like, yeah, and like, you were trying to convince me that you had very advanced technology and you waited to show me the hologram till after you'd persuaded me? Yeah. What's that about?
That seems like a first contact kind of thing to do if you really wanted to wow me.
Wow. So the Denobulans had similar weather problems on their planet and felt like a kinship with these people. And so they're like, let's throw them some weather towers. But they haven't been doing the maintenance on them. So that's why they've been dying.
What no one says is how this is utterly an example of why the Prime Directive exists. Like, right. One thing leads to another, and you're being worshipped as a god, and people are sacrificing themselves through your sprinkler system, and it's just a mess.
Yeah. He is having a pretty understandable crisis of faith here.
Are there no gods? I just like to fuck with the clergy, man. I just love it. I love to keep those guys on their toes.
He's like, I don't know if we want to walk away from this whole sacrifice thing. It's a pretty great deal for us, what with the social cohesion it engenders. And Michael Burnham is like, you don't have to give up anything you don't want to give up. You just now know new information in addition to all the stuff you knew before. This is fine.
So we can still have an iron grasp over our culture and bend them to our will? As long as you promise we can still do that as a religious institution, deal.
Yeah. Everybody feels good about this.
Uh-huh. I love how Ovaz is like, some of the olds, they're not going to like this whatsoever. Burnham's like, not all olds.
Yeah. Some olds are surprisingly progressive.
Yeah.
Beliefs can evolve.
So Rava wakes up, and while they have a reunion with their father, Tilly shows Michael Burnham a symbol on the wall that corresponds with what's written on the vial. A vial that has Tower 5 symbol written on it. So the mystery is, what happened to Tower 5, Ben? Will we ever really know what happened to Tower 5? Kind of seems like a lot happens off screen at the end of this episode.
Distilled water can't melt tritanium towers.
That much we know is a fact.
Yeah, that's where the clue probably is. Rava has earned the undying respect and esteem of their father. It starts to rain in the tower, which is great news for the people of this planet. And back on Starship Discovery, Culber's like, all right, Book, you can be in this episode a little bit more. Here's some Mofongo. I know that you're a spiritual man, and I guess what I need right now is some spiritual guidance.
What's going on?
I'm having a spiritual awakening.
This food seems to be spiritually amazing, though, because Mofongo's delicious.
Yeah, Mofongo rules. And I like the guidance that Book has, because it's not that spiritual. It's more just like relationship advice. It's like, hey, if this is making you happy and it isn't your partner's bag, that's okay.
I was surprised that this was so clear and concise as a directive. Like,
yeah,
It's okay for couples not to feel the same thing about every situation. That's what makes you separate people.
Right.
And it's okay that you are.
I'm never going to be as passionate about Formula One as my wife is.
It's an odd quirk, really.
Here's a question. How surprised are you that the fork persists as a way to eat food? Because you get a couple of shots here of this mofongo being consumed with kind of an enormous fork. And I'm like, look at the fork.
Yeah.
Look at it go.
Look at it go. I did notice this, but mostly because Daron is like learning to eat with utensils and never wants to use the child-size ones. So I was like, oh, they got the big one.
We have an entire section of our utensil drawer that is filled with spoons that we have as part of a set that are just too big. The cup is too big in that spoon.
Oh,
it's impossible.
Yeah. That sounds like my kind of spoon.
You can have them.
So they're talking Michael Burnham and Tilly about like, so like every other one of these little vignettes in this season has been about a lesson that we need to learn or, you know, a challenge we need to rise to in order to control this technology. What's the lesson here? The lesson here is with technology, you never know. And you got to be hella careful with how you deploy it and use it.
Yeah. Incoming message from Federation HQ, Ben. Maul and Locke have been found. And in the final scene of this episode, Discovery heads straight there. Did you like this episode, Ben?
She'll always bring it home.
I think that there was a lot about this episode that I liked, but I think I kind of didn't like it overall. I think that the thing that really kind of ruined it for me was that the race was just so poorly mounted as a set piece. Like, it was jogging in the woods. It was not like, you know, boulder jumping. It didn't seem exciting or dangerous, really. It was like, I know that this sucks for the people in the race and that it is a hard race for them, but as a like visual experience, like give me a pod race, give me a, you know, like give me avatars. We're jumping up, you know, rocks that are connected by vines that are floating in the air for some reason, you know?
That stuff is hard though, man.
It is hard.
The idea of a simple thing made difficult because of a lot of salt. I know what that feels like.
We relate to that, but we're hedonistic freaks. And yeah, like I think that if I'd been sitting in the writer's room and this was what got written, I would have been like, yeah, I don't know. Like, what if we make the set piece a challenge that is like visually compelling or more inventive than just kind of jogging, you know?
And the way to do that is the inclusion of those bear tongs into those bowls.
Include the bear tongs in the bowls.
Yeah.
You know, because like not to compare this to a fight scene, but I think that the fight scenes overall in this season have just been so superlative. Every time they're doing hand-to-hand sequences and shooting sequences, like the action stuff has all been so good. And to center an episode around a jog in the woods just felt like it kind of like downshifted the season to me. But that said, like I thought that the mystery part was good and interesting, and I'm always down for a Mintakan episode where you gotta break the Prime Directive at just the right time to make it feel dramatically relevant. So that stuff all worked for me. But I'd say that this has been probably my least favorite of the episodes so far this season.
Wow. All right. I think I love a Tilly episode. And this episode is made better for that character's involvement and promotion into the A story.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with that, though. We all know Tilly lives, and I think that takes any sort of tension or threat of death out of her circumstances at the end.
Right.
Because I really wanted to fear for her, and I just couldn't get there because Tilly lives, and we know that. Tilly's going to be a part of a new Star Trek show coming up. So I'm conflicted because give me a Tilly A story, but don't try to fake the threat of death involving that character.
Yeah.
I've been around the block
Right.
watching Star Trek episodes. I read the trades.
If Saru was watching Tilly in that room, his ganglia would not be dropping out at all.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
would not sense the coming of death.
Yeah. Perfectly fine episode, I think. I really like green, dusty location.
Yeah, the location was cool.
I personally like the race. I like something simple made hard or death defying the way that they did. It felt contextually the way a past person would create something dangerous and controllable like that. So it kind of held together for me in that way.
Yeah. Maybe I wanted like there to be something more about those Tibetan singing bowls, like somehow like the like technology of sound vibration was brought, like that's like something that they have like gotten really advanced at as past people or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
Bring back the bowls.
Bring the bowls into it.
More bowls.
Yeah. They got those metal bowls and they got those olive wood bowls just like crazy down there.
This was the bowliest episode we've gotten since that episode of Voyager where we learned the Bolian was going to take over in the mess hall for Neelix.
Yeah.
Nerd! Let's go see what we got in the Priority 1 inbox bin.
Okay.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Adam, we just got one little message in the Priority 1 inbox today. It's from Kevin and Patrick, and it's to Ben, Adam, and Wynde. And it goes like this. It was great seeing you in Atlanta. Loving the pilot season apps, especially the Sequest one. Promised myself that I would get a P1 if you did SG1, and you just announced it, so here you go. Also, shout out to Patrick, who's helping defray the embarrassment of this P1, if not the cost. P.S. Wynde, can we please get a Shatner saying sabotage drop?
In a deliberate act of sabotage, Lieutenant Uhura has effectively sabotaged the communications station.
Hey, way to go, Kevin and Patrick. Making a deal with themselves.
Yeah.
Following through with it.
Sounds like Patrick didn't help money-wise. just embarrassment-wise by getting name-checked in this.
Hey, Patrick did something too.
Yeah. Okay.
Patrick is important here.
You don't have to feel bad, Patrick. I'm also broke most of the time. Shadow does say sabotage weird. We've learned this.
In a great way.
Yeah.
Like the way Picard says charade, that's how Shatner says sabotage. Every captain's got their word. And every episode of Greatest Trek has their Priority 1s. Look, they're a great way to support the show, and we have capacity for your message sooner than you think. So get in there at MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron, and we can read what you got to say pretty soon here.
Facts. Hey, Adam.
What's that, Ben?
Did you discover yourself an Edward Darkin? Edward Darkin!
I kind of want to give it to Ovaz to be like, you know, the religious rubber really meets the religious road when it affects you or your family personally, like all those consequences. And it seems like for a moment, he's like, not my progeny.
Hey, yeah.
I'm going to do something about this.
Right. It's like a politician whose kid doesn't have to go to war.
Yeah, but he stays firm. And behind the cave doors goes Rava. And I guess that now that I articulate all of those reasons, that is a very dark Edward Darkin.
Edward Darkin?
Edward
Darkin.
What about you, Ben?
I'm giving it to Tilly just for one specific moment. The Mary Wiseman I thought was great in this episode all the way through, but her line read on the word sacrifice when she's finally in the temple and overhears us talking about that.
That is really hard to do, the way she did it.
absolutely nailed that. And I laughed out loud. It was such a funny portrayal of a character basically saying, oh no, you know?
Mary Wiseman's quality per word of dialogue delivery is off the charts.
Yeah, she fucking rules.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, last segment on the show. Every time we do an episode of Greatest Trek is the Warning Boys segment.
Prepare a buoy and launch it when ready.
Warning buoys.
An emergency buoy.
A warning buoy.
This one is a review from Apple Podcasts. Warning Boys, of course, are when friends of DeSoto write reviews or put up social media posts on the internet that should encourage the right kind of people and dissuade the wrong kind of people from listening to our show. And this is a 5-star review. Subject line, you guys messed up big time. And the content is, now all I want in the world is for Greatest Battlestar to get picked up to series. And I'm going to keep leaving 5-star reviews until I get it.
That's a hell of a threat.
I feel like that's the way you get what you want around here.
Yeah. Very gentle threat.
I am delighted by what a big success pilot season was. So many people were so delighted by all of the various things that we reviewed on that, and more of those will be coming to the bonus feed for sure. And, you know, who knows? You know, crazier things than have happened. We might pick one of those up to series.
The bonus feed is where it's at. And with your support, you can get on in there. Listen to all of it.
Indeed. Well, hey, our producer, Wynde Priddy, has been out of town on vacation for a couple of weeks, but Wynde Priddy is back and is going to read some credits now.
Hey, Wynde, we did not party while you were gone.
Yeah.
If you find anything fucked up in the Dropbox folders, it wasn't us.
Oh, yeah. Probably Rob Adler did that or something.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't know him that well yet. It's got to be his fault.
Welcome back, Wynde.
Welcome back, Wynde. Take it away.
Greatest Trek is an Uxbridge Shimoda podcast on the Maximum Fun Network. It's hosted by Ben Harrison and Adam Pranica, and it's produced and edited by Wynde Priddy. Next Friday, Ben and Adam will be back to cover Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 7. It's called Eriga. If you have a moment to leave a 5-star rating or review for the show, we really appreciate you doing that. Another thing that helps people find us is your word-of-mouth recommendations, so tell someone you know. Membership support is what keeps the podcast going, so we want to say thanks to everyone who supports on a monthly basis. There's a huge catalog of bonus content available to members and a new bonus episode coming out every single month. We really appreciate your support at MaximumFun.org/join. Thanks to Adam Ragusea, who composed the theme music for Greatest Trek. Find him on YouTube, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed to the @Greatest Trek YouTube channel as well. Thanks to Nick Dittmore for creating the show art, and thanks to Bill Tilly and Rob Adler for all their hard work managing the various social media pages. You can find those by searching for @Greatest Trek. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on Greatest Trek.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows supported
directly
by you.